Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA193. Today on Equality for All, I want to talk about veterans, the respect of veterans. In particular, my father, a World War II veteran, along with veterans that I had the blessed opportunity to work with back in the day with marijuana for trauma. And where I am today, I speak of this to those that listen to understand how certain passages planted seeds in my mind to where I am today, where I've encompassed in my life a new lifestyle that I've embraced wholeheartedly. And I, without getting into the lifestyle, I want to focus on veterans today and how we as a nation, we have no comprehension. You know, we might have our days and our bad days and our bad moments and our bad weeks and our bad life. But when I look at records, I have boxes of it that I had the opportunity after the passing of my father to get these documents from the government library in Archives Canada, basically that Department of National Defense and so forth. And I got all his war records. You saw the introduction of his telegram when he was severely injured at war. That telegram is one of the piece of papers of the occupational history and injuries and passages of my father. And I'm gonna get into some of the details here, and then I want to talk openly about this. And what was interesting when I was going through a lot of stuff about my father, I did not know. And like a lot of veterans, they don't talk about it, and understandably so, right? They talk amongst themselves. I always tell people I hang on my own. I've worked in enforcement, I worked in corrections, I was an inspector, etc. And there's a lot of things that you only hang with your own and speak to your own of because others don't understand, right? When I can speak about institutional and when I was part of the riot team and so forth, you speak amongst yourself and it speaks amongst your own, right? The same thing applies to veterans. Unless you've walked through that path, and Equality for All is about knowledge, training, and experience, along with speaking to those that have the knowledge, training, and experience, but have also walked through that path, right? Data and research, and here it is, data and research right here, right? So when I look at my father's records, his campaign medals that my brother has, that holds of him, 1935 to 1945, the Star, France and Germany Star, a Defense Medal, the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal and Clasp, War Medal of 1939 to 1945, right? So then it goes on to talk about his discharge certificate. He was honorably discharged and from action because he was severely injured at war, and upon recovery, he was honorably discharged. He basically enlisted in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, and from the enlistment from Kingston, Ontario, Canada, he went to Cornwall. Thereafter, he was held in Valcartier, Quebec, before heading off to Europe. And I've talked about the France and Germany here medals. He was an apprentice engineer. I did not know that. Or he wanted to get into apprentice engineer, but they haven't listed here as apprentice engineer. I was not aware of that. And these are things that, you know, if my father was alive today, I'd love to ask him those questions. And I tell individuals all the time, ask them questions. Ask your parents questions. I lost both my parents before the age of 40. My mother was in my 30s, and my father had a little over 40. My father passed away. But this is their passages, right? When I look at my father's passage, some of these questions like I just mentioned, the apprentice engineer, which I have no clue of. He from Kingston, Cornwall, Valcartier. And here's what's interesting. I grew up with my father. His mother passed away in 1945. So my father, when he was severely injured at war, he was heading back. He was a mama's boy, the oldest of sons. Him and his sister had 6 younger siblings. And this is the stories I got off my uncle who served the Korean War. And he said, when your father was heading back, severely injured, his mother was dying of cancer. His mother died before he arrived. He was a mama's boy. I was a mama's boy. And he never saw his mother again. So when he headed off to war, she didn't want him to go. And he said, if you don't let me go, you'll never see me again. So she let him go. She never saw him again, right? So what's interesting about these dates, when I look at my father basically, his mother passed away in 1945. My father pretty much ruined a lot of Christmases. Today we call it PTSD, back then you can call it whatever. He never took a day off in his life, that man. Literally never took a day off in his life. Always worked, always going. And so when I look at his war record and I look at the Christmases and how many Christmases were ruined in my family, I mean, fully lit Christmas trees, and I've said this to those that are close to me, patio door wide open, out the door, fully lit Christmas trees, and the emotions on Christmas and so forth. There was a lot of those Christmases. And then when I went through his war records, mother passes away before he arrives, and my uncle gave me all the details of that. And then when he went to WWII, when he shipped off to Europe, off to war, it was December 26th when he left off. So Christmas season is where he leaves. And then his father, when he arrives, his mother had passed away. And then the year later, his father passes away on December 26th. You see the connections here? I understand my father more today than when I did when I was with him, right? And that's why I tell people, ask some questions. So the man, when you look at fully lit Christmas trees and ruining Christmases and so forth, throwing them out the doors and always starting fights or something, like emotions would come out of it a lot. It makes sense today, right? And I remember as an older man, when I got older, and one of the last times that he ruined the Christmas, I went toe to toe with my father. You know, I stood up to him, and I told him that I was tired of him ruining our Christmases, right? I wish I would have had the opportunity to be who I am today and talk to him in the yesterdays and having that conversation with him, you know. And I tell people it's okay to cry. Like my father cried. Drake had no problem crying because he would get emotional always around Christmas. Absolutely makes sense today. And I tell people, like, have those conversations, and those conversations have emotions, and let them out, and go in depth with individuals when you can, right? Listen to understand when you can. When I go through these documents here, they talk about him being an awkward young man, and that he was basically acting French. They talk about him being very French, and he completed grade 8 or grade 7, depending on which page you're on. But he, at the age of 13, he completed a grade 8, and the other page it talks about grade 7. He completed his service as an infantry as a rifleman. Right, never got into the. Talks about the Glengarrian here, being injured in Europe. Return in December of 44. Right, a lot of things happened to him in December. A rather awkward young man. This is what the document series talks about, and him being the French individual that he was. They talk about him being solid. See right here, it says completing grade 7 at age 13, no dependent and so forth. So when I look at my dad and I look at these documents, and again, I don't want to go through all this stuff, and he came back and worked as a service elevator individual. And then when I look at what my path took me, you know, I worked with Marijuana for Trauma, which I mentioned a moment ago. And in that passage of Marijuana for Trauma, I went into that journey when I was approached, do you want to work with veterans? And I put my hand up, absolutely, right? And because of Marijuana for Trauma, I understand my father more today than I did in the yesterdays. And also because of Marijuana for Trauma, I had an opportunity to work with women and men that were struggling, and that completely changed their lives through the help of cannabinoid therapy and clinicians and social workers. And one of the things I've always resounded with me was an individual that was on multiple opiates a day, and I believe he was on 43 or 60. It is amazing how many people out there are on 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opiates a day. It's just mind-boggling. And this individual, I remember when we were talking one night, and we were having a conversation, and he explained that when he started coming off the opiates, remember the cloud in mind and the impaired judgment with the opiates, he said, and got into cannabinoid therapy, the psychiatrist started making sense. The dietitian started making sense. The social worker started making sense. Family life started making sense, right? And that makes absolute sense to me. And I look back in my father's generation when they came back from the war, they had nothing, literally nothing. So his mother dies before he arrives. Him and his sister and father started helping raising these 6 younger siblings. His father dies a year later on Boxing Day, the 26th of December. Then him and his sister become the principal parents of those children. That was in a time frame. There was no lines of credit, no credit cards, and there was nothing. Today we have programs for programs for programs. And back then it was absolutely nothing. You wanted something, you either earned it, you grew it, you stole it, or you stood up in line at a soup kitchen, and literally it's broth, right? So when I look at what they had, we have no clue, absolutely no clue what that generation went through. And when I talk about our generation, absolutely there's hardship right now and etc. But when you look on a comparison scale, there's absolutely no comparison. Zero, nada, zilts, right? So when I go through these documents and going back to the individuals that I had the opportunity to work with at Marijuana for Trauma, when they instilled in me is that what my father instilled in me. He raised me hard, very hard. And when he was 80 years old, I thanked him. I did a party at this house, and I invited a lot of people and his brother and that kind of stuff and family, and I thanked him for being hard on me because I told him, you made me who I am today. I mean, he caught me in my jiu-jitsu class as a young lad fooling around. And this comes from a generation, this is a man that helped raise, what, 12, 10, 13 kids. You know, like we had 8 kids in our house, plus we raised the children of others. And there was always a family of Waltons around my table. And it was one income, right? My father's income. My mother worked hard. She was a house mom. And my father was income, multiple incomes. He worked at multiple jobs to make ends meet and put food on the table for a lot of people. And when I look at that, and when he caught me at that jiu-jitsu and fooling around as a kid, he took me home. I think he made me do like 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups. And I remember trembling, and my mother like going toe-to-toe with him and telling him to stop, and him sending her off. And because he taught me the value of money. He taught me the value of getting up in the morning and earning it. He taught me the value of not wasting other people's time and energy and money and so forth. And he never gave me an allowance. And he told me that I was going to get up in the morning and earn it. I'm going to learn to open my own doors in life. And that in itself is what's missing in a lot of parts of our society today, right? And it takes a village to raise a child. When I look at that and I see these documents and I go back to Marijuana for Trauma and I see these individuals that completely change their life, and I tell people, living the life that I live now, the rest will follow. Well, that happens, right? When you take control of your life and you're able to pivot that life, and you need the help of others and the support of others. You got to do it on your own, and you got to do it for yourself. But that support of others, because the more you improve yourself, you will improve those around you. That radiating energy will, for those that you love and respect, will follow. And when I look at Marijuana for Trauma and these individuals and the individuals that the psychiatrists, the psychometrists, the social workers, the dietitians, the family started making sense, I understood that. Because the way that I live today, I understand that today. And they also, when I was with Marijuana for Trauma, I was, and I knew about yoga and I knew about the spirituality and energy and a lot of that stuff. But a lot of I'm a humanist. If I look at myself as an individual, I'm a humanist. And when I look at what I went through over there, it opened my eyes to a different part of life that is very fundamentally principles of fabric that you should stand on, right? Investing in yourself. And I saw individuals that investing in themselves, and by investing in themselves, the rest followed. They had to repair them, right? When you repair you, the rest starts resonating with you. And so I'm blessed to have walked through that path. I'm blessed to have had listened to, understand, and observe, and that the absorption that I did planted multiple seeds in my brain to where I am today. And then from the Marijuana for Trauma, I had the opportunity to work with other great organizations across this country. And it's more so the individuals, that the ones that built a lot of the multidisciplinary type clinics in cannabinoid therapy to assist people in taking care of themselves and learning about themselves and restructuring themselves. I tell people that it took me 53 years to build the body and mind and soul that I have, and now I'm taking the next 50 years of my life. I'm 54 now, but the next 50 years of my life to renovate what I built, right? I'm putting back together the pieces that should have been taken care of properly. And like we all do in life, right? We all need a spring cleaning once in a while. And when you renovate yourself, the 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 rewards in themselves are are priceless. They are literally priceless. What do you put? What value do you put on your life, on your mind, body, and soul? There is no price, right? And these individuals, that the path that they've taken, and the freedom that we have, has no price. That is absolutely priceless. The freedom that we have in this country, and we are in a very particular part of life right now in 2020 with COVID and all these changes that are happening, like massive about face changes that we have to swallow by massive jagged pills and that we're not happy with, right? But when I take that into comparison, and if I was to put it onto a chart, there's absolutely no comparison what men and women across our nations, across our world and our globe have gone through at wars, and what a lot of them go through on a day-to-day basis in war-torn countries. So I will salute a lot of the veterans out there, put my hand over my heart for those that have walked through those paths. And in respect to my father, in respect to my uncle, in respect of all veterans out there that I got to know and understand. And because of you, I thank you for allowing me to understand more my father today. And on this Remembrance Day, take the moment, just take a moment, do some research. Research your country, research your veterans, research the information on those that you love and respect that have walked through a path that you have no clue on. And if they are there around you, and if you have that close relationship with them, ask them questions and just sit and listen to understand. Let them tell you about them. Ask them about them, right? And a lot of them don't want to talk about it, and that's okay. It's okay, right? But if they do want to talk about it, just let them talk and just listen. Absorb and appreciate your freedom that you have today. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, equality for all.